This is the story of Jonah. The Bible is trying to tell us that an actual fish swallowed a person. How the Bible describes it, big fish in the Hebrew is dog, gadol. You want to know how to say fish in Hebrew? Dog. Big dog fish. Big dog fish. Here's my question. This is kind of like a silly question, but what kind of fish was it? If you grew up in church world, you know that the answer is not a whale, right? It says fish, not a whale. But whales are big. Well, you're stupid and you don't love Jesus because it was just a fish. It's just a fish. But you know that up until 100 years ago, all the pictures that people draw of the Jonah fish, they all look the same up until 100 years ago. And they always look like a giant sea monster serpent thing. Now, is there something all these other Christians know that somehow we don't know anymore? Jesus, remember Jesus talks about Jonah? Jesus will actually tell us what fish it was. He says it when he talks about it. This is Matthew 12, verse 38. This is what Jesus says. He's talking to his disciples. Then some of the Pharisees and teachers of the law said to him, "Teacher, we want to see a sign from you." He answered, "A wicked and adulterous generation asks for a sign, but none will be given it except the sign of the prophet Jonah. For as Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of here's what Jesus says it. He says, in the belly of the huge fish, so the Son of Man will be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth." Okay, so when Jesus says huge fish, your translations say huge fish, but the word that Jesus used, the word is ketos, which always means sea monster. Sea monster. There are other words for fish. The word that Jesus uses to talk about Jonah and the thing that ate Jonah is sea monster. No big deal. Jonah was swallowed by a sea monster. Okay, all right. You're not as excited as I am about sea monsters. That's fine. If you guys own a Bible, you know there are different versions of the Bible, right? Some of you guys have maybe King James. You love those these and thous and not understanding half of what you're reading. You love that, right? Other of you have maybe New International Version. There are different versions of the Bible. That was true in the time of Jesus. When Jesus quotes the Bible, people can actually grab those phrases and they can figure out what version of the Bible Jesus used. You see, when you would go to church in those times, there was like a town Bible. This one was written out in Hebrew. It was super expensive to make a Hebrew Bible. You had to have some Hebrew scholars make it. So someone down the line said, we need to make a cheaper Bible. It was actually Jews who lived in Egypt. The Jews that had moved down and were living in Egypt suddenly realized, oh, we don't know how to speak Hebrew anymore or read Hebrew anymore. We only know how to read and speak Greek. So they got together and they hired 72 scholars, Hebrew scholars. They locked them in little rooms and they say, translate the Old Testament from the Hebrew, translate it to the Greek. You have this much time. If you don't make it, you will die. No. And then they go over and they translate it and they grab 70 of the copies. They reject 2 of them, 70 that are identical. And that becomes the translation of the 70. It's the Greek Bible. And Greek is much easier to translate. It's much easier to mass produce. And this actually becomes the Bible that Jesus reads. And when Jesus quotes that story from Jonah, he's actually quoting from that translation. That translation says sea monster over and over again. In fact, this is how it, okay, just we're nerding out for like 30 more seconds and then I promise we'll get interesting again. 30 more seconds. Ketos, which is the Greek word for sea monster. When you then compare it to the Hebrew Bible, its equivalent word is tanim. Okay? Just hold that in your head. Ketos in Greek. In Hebrew, it means tanim. So if you want to know about sea monsters, if you want to know more about the sea monster that swallowed Jonah, you should then grab the word Tanim and then go through the rest of the Bible and see where else does Tanim show up. By the way, it shows up not only in the Bible, it shows up in every other religion in the area. It shows up as the boogeyman, as like a story you would tell kids to frighten them. You would say the word Tanim, and children would begin crying. Tanim. In the Bible, by the way, Tanim is translated as flying serpent, dragon, translated as Leviathan. When you put a picture together of what a Tanim is, it is a huge monster. In fact, in Job 41, this huge monster breathes fire out of its mouth. It's bigger than a boat. In fact, when you see what a Tanim is, the way that Jonah is describing, he says, verse 3, chapter 2, you cast me into the deep, into the heart of the seas, and the floods surrounding me. That deep, that's where only the Tanim lives. There's other ways to say you go into the ocean, but the book of Jonah is trying to tell us, he cast me into the place where the monsters live. And then it says, the storm, Job 41:31 says, he makes the deep boil like a pot. This monster, he makes the sea like a pot of ointment. He leaves a shining wake behind him. What would think that the deep had white hair? In other words, the book of Jonah is trying to tell us that there's a sea monster that was going around. It's so big, it's so powerful that it's causing a storm. The second thing is, when you read about this monster, this Tanim, you can't run away from it. No one can run away from it. In chapter 2, when it tells us that the sailors are trying to row away from the storm, no one does that. That is the worst strategy. And the word that they're being used to row is not the regular word for row. You find it later on, and it's only when you encounter a monster. Check it out. Amos 9:2. It's row, but here it's translated dig. Same thing though. You know, you dig with a paddle, row with a paddle. Okay. Amos 9:2 says, though they dig down to the depths below, from there my hand will take them. Though they climb up to the heavens above, from there I will bring them down. Though they hide themselves on the top of Mount Carmel, there I will hunt them down and seize them. Though they hide from me at the bottom of the sea, there I will command the sea serpent to bite them. Oh, wow. Okay, so it's a giant monster, possibly breathes fire. You cannot run away from it. It will find you. If you're in the deep, it will find you. Her name is Katie B. And Katie B has on her bucket list, she's wanted to dive off of Guadalupe, Mexico. It's just like this beautiful part by the ocean, and it's very deep. And it's also the highest concentration of great white sharks outside of South Africa. South Africa for the win. No, she's not here. All right, fine. All right, Guadalupe for the win then. Okay, so she goes out there with her team. Her joy, what she wants to do is she wants to take a picture of a great white biting into some kind of a bloody meat. You've seen those pictures? You know, stuff with nightmares? The shark like opens its mouth. Oh, crunch. You know how you look at potluck. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry, who said that? Come on, this is a welcoming church. All right. So Katie B gets out there. She goes out with her best bud. His name is Yami, and her other best bud, his name is Miles. They get out there in Guadalupe. They're on a boat. The boat is called the Nautilus Explorer, and this is all this boat does. It has two giant 35-foot shark cages. I don't know if you know this or not, but that is a massive cage. It's actually a 2-story cage. There's a bottom, they call it the basement, and the top. I don't remember what they call it. Probably the top. In between, there's like a little gate where people from the bottom can go to the top. So what they do is they take the cages out, they throw them off the back of the boat, and then they grab a massive tuna fish. And they do something called, let's see, what do they call it? They call it wrangling. They tie the tuna and they throw it out there. And they get a shark to start following the tuna. And they bring the tuna in, so that right in front of the cage, the shark bites the tuna. And it's spectacular. And people love it. They go in the first day, and there are so many sharks in the water. And the sharks are a little shy, they come and they nibble and run away. And people are just having so much fun. You get to go in for a turn of 45 minutes, taking pictures. Oh man, did you see that one? Cool. Then they go the second day. Everyone's really excited. In the cage, it's going to go KDB, Yami, and Miles. And they're going to be in the top part of the cage. And they get in there. They have a fresh new tuna. They cut the tuna. They also start chumming the water, which means they start grabbing these bags of just like fish guts and just start throwing them in the water. And that starts calling all the sharks from the area. Pretty soon, you see all these fins going around. It is the stuff of nightmares. But these people are nuts. So they're like, I want to go into that. They get in the cages. They go down into the cages. Before they're about to go down into the cages, they're reminded again of the protocol. If you stay in the cage, you're safe. This cage is built to withstand any sea creature. Okay, I feel safe. They get in the cages. They're lowered down, and pretty soon they start seeing the sharks. But this time, the sharks are bigger. On this day, the females are coming out. And the people who work on the boat have actually named the sharks, because it's the same regular sharks that know that food is coming in the water, and they come in. Which, by the way, bad idea to train a shark to come and kill things. Anyway, okay, so it comes in, and they see this big great white shark, 18 feet long. They've nicknamed that one Big Mama. Big Mama's coming. There's another one that's coming off from the side. That girl is called White Death. White Death. And then the biggest of them all, the baddest, is called Air Demon. An air demon comes to the cage, stops. By the way, when they're in the cage, there's a hose of air coming down from the boat. Air demon doesn't bother to go for the tuna. Instead, air demon makes a turn, goes for the hose, and bites it. Super casually bites it. Bubbles start going out. There are leaking air. They kind of start panicking and start looking upside. Did they see us up there? Up there, they did see them. They see that their air is compromised, so they crank the air. Because even if you're leaking, if you pump enough air down there, they will still be able to breathe. This time, Big Mama is making a circle. Big Mama's coming right up to the cage, right up to the bars, and putting her jaws right on them, like testing them, going around. They're leaking air. Mama comes from the other side. Okay. And then White Death begins swimming at an incredible speed, and White Death goes right into the cage. The bump is so hard that Yami loses his regulator. It goes flying from his mouth. All of them are knocked on their back. They're knocked to the ground. Yami loses his regulator. By the way, Big Mama, White Death, Air Demon have been eating meat. So whenever they come close, they're oozing liquid from what they've eaten. The water's getting cloudy. You cannot see anymore. Yami can't find his regulator. The entrance for them to see is big enough for a human to go. So Yami takes a shot. He goes right out. He has no air, and he shoots all the way to the top. He is safe. He's made it. By this time, Big Mama is making her turn. And Big Mama's big and a mama. And she comes and she goes with all her might and boom, crashes into the cage, and in fact gets half of her body into the cage. The bars around her bend over. This was supposed to withstand an attack. They are now in the bottom, watching as the shark is inches away. They open the little panel and they sneak into the bottom. And so now the Big Mama is stuck on the top compartment. The shark is stuck. And now as the shark is stuck, it begins to thrash violently. And they are like little ragdolls on the bottom, being going around. By the way, as the shark begins to thrash, the hose completely tears. So these two that are on the bottom with the shark inches away have to get out. The only exit is in the top compartment. So in a moment, what would you do? what would you do? You remember my move? Scream and die. That would be my move. These two, hardcore. They look at each other, underwater eye contact, in the middle of blood swirling around. No big deal. No big deal. We're going to go there. We're going to go swim right by the shark and hope it doesn't eat us. The shark is almost taking up the entire entrance, the entire part there, but there's a part there where the shark is not, so they get up there controlling their breathing because they have no more air, and people aren't fish. They get up there, inches to spare as the shark is and they both get out. And when they get to the top of the boat, their first concern is, we got to free the shark. We think it's hurting itself. And other divers jump into the water. They tie a rope on the back of the shark. They pull the cage out and they free the shark. Here's the other thing that comes with monsters. You cannot control them. You cannot control monsters. Job 41 kind of mocks how people sometimes try and control monsters. Say, can you drive out Leviathan, same name, Tanim? Can you drive out Leviathan with a fish hook? Or press down his tongue with a cord? Can you put a rope on his nose or pierce his jaw with a hook? Will he beg you for anything? You cannot control a monster. Here's what we're going to wrap up with. The Tanim in the Bible. Anytime it's mentioned, it always represents chaos. It always represents something beyond your control. In the scriptures, the Tanim, these monsters, are compared to invading armies. For example, Jeremiah 51:34 says, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, invading army, has devoured us. He has thrown us into confusion. He has made us as an empty jar. Like a sea serpent, he has swallowed us and filled his stomach with our delicacies and then has vomited us out. It's almost the exact same story. That super powerful, scary creature represents everything that would have been under control. By the way, Jonah lived in a time where the world seemed to be falling apart all the time, like countries invading other countries for no good reason. Wait, it's like right now. Like economies constantly failing, people are losing their job. That's what he lived in. And then all of a sudden in chapter 2, you have this Tanim, this mythological creature that represents all that. This creature that can never be controlled by a human. No human can tame it. This is what Jonah lived. Are there monsters today? Are there monsters around? Is there a monster in your life? It's anything that is out of your control. Any government that's making decisions that you don't agree with, that's a monster. Did I just call Justin Trudeau a monster? No, I'm just... A monster is anything you can't even wrap your head around. Maybe right now you're eating lunches alone at school. That's a monster that's way too scary to even look at. Maybe you're on the job hunt and it's been a while. Maybe you're in the midst of something with your health. It's a monster that's out of your control. You can't comprehend it. You can't wrap your head around it. Maybe it's you're looking for the one, finding the one, your forever friend. Try to be more specific. That's such a big monster. You cannot control. And what happens is when our reaction to these monsters that are going around, you know what we try and do? We try and do things like insurance. And then a natural disaster comes and it just takes it all out. We try and control it. We try and contain it, but we can't because a Tanim, a monster, it cannot be controlled. The only reaction that humans have is then they worry or they have fear. By the way, this is so far like a really depressing message. Let's turn this around. In the middle of the fish, right in the belly of the fish, Jonah does something that changes the story. Verse 9, he says, I worship the God, the Lord. No, sorry. At the beginning of the story, when he introduces the name of God, he says, I worship the Lord, the God of heaven, who made the sea and the dry land. You know that no one else calls God by that name in the entire Bible. Only Jonah does. It's such a weird thing to say, because the last time that God has that name of the dry land is in Genesis, when God is creating. And it tells us in Genesis in verse 21, so God created the great creatures of the deep, aka the Tanim. Every monster that you see, God is over it. It is subject to him. That's how Jonah introduces his story. I serve the God who controls this monster. And not only that, we go to Isaiah 27:1, and God is throwing something at his people. You live in a world that is going to be thrown with monsters. You're going to be swallowed up. You're going to just helplessly wander there as it's about to eat you. And Isaiah 27:1 says this, in that day the Lord will punish with his sword, his fierce, great, and powerful sword, Leviathan, the gliding serpent, Leviathan, the coiling serpent, that dragon. He will slay the monster of the sea. These things out of our control, they are subject to God. God is in control, and God will end this. God will end this reign of terror of monsters. There will come a day when we will no longer have to concern ourselves. There are no longer going to be nightmare stories of the monsters of the deep. So here's what Jonah does. When he's in the middle, and this is what we can take away from this. If you take only one thing from this message, is this right here. Chapter 2, verse 4 says, in the middle of the belly, in the middle of no hope, in the middle of an overwhelming monster, Jonah does this. Yet I will look again toward your holy temple. What? In the middle of this great crisis, Jonah says that he will worship. Yet I will look again to your holy temple. You would think that he would say, please save me, please help me, please change me, please get me out of here, please do something. No, he says, I'm going to worship. Why? Here's why. This is where the whole story of Jonah turns. Here's why. When you are in a relationship with God, when you worship God, you understand God's relationship with everything else. When you know God, when you know how great God is, you realize that he's still in control. You realize that he has already defeated the monsters. You can begin to trust him with your life and know that although you may not control this, God is in control. He is the creator of heaven and earth and the dry land. It is all subject to him. So we'll end with this. Wherever you are in your journey right now, and all of us, we're in different places. There are different things that frighten us. There are different things out of our control. I want to encourage you to take a step forward and say that I will trust Jesus. I will trust Jesus. I will trust that Jesus is in control. I may not know the end from the beginning, but I trust that God is in control. I want you to stand with us as we close today. Sing this with me. 'Cause I may be weak,
flesh may fail, my God, you never will. 'Cause I may be weak, but your spirit's strong in me. My flesh may fail, my God, you never will. 'Cause I may be weak, but your spirit's strong in me. My flesh may fail, my God, you never will. 'Cause I may be weak, but your spirit's strong in me. My flesh may fail, my God, you never will. Give me faith to trust what you say, that you're good, your love is great. I'm broken inside, I give you my life. 'Cause I may be weak, 'cause I may be weak, but your spirit's strong in me. My flesh may fail, oh my God, you never will. 'Cause I may be weak, but your spirit's strong in me. And my flesh may fail, my God, you never will.
Father, thank you for this opportunity to worship and just be in your presence today. As we fellowship together, enjoy some time together, God, I just ask you to be with us, God. And most importantly, God, as we offer our battles to you, we know that you've never lost a battle and that you're ultimately in control. So help us to go with courage and face another week with you by our side. Give us the rest we need today in your holy name, I pray. Thank you so much for joining us today. Just join us next door for food and have a happy Sabbath.
I count on one thing, the same God never fails, will not fail me now. He won't fail me now in the way. The same God never late, working all things out, working all things out. Oh yes, I will lift you high in the lowest valley. Yes, I will bless your name. Oh yes, I will sing for joy when my heart is heavy all my days. Oh yes, I will. I count on one, the same God never fails, will not fail me now. You won't fail me now. The same God who's never late, working all things out, working all things out. Yes, I will lift you high in the lowest valley. Yes, I will bless your name. Oh yes, I will sing for joy when my heart is heavy all my days. Oh yes, I will for all my days. Oh yes, I I choose to praise, to glorify, glorify the name of all names, that nothing can stand against. And I choose to praise, to glorify, glorify the name of all names, that nothing can stand against. And I choose to praise, glorify, glorify the name of all names, that nothing can stand against. Oh yes, I will lift you high in the lowest valley. Yes, I will bless your name. Oh yes, I will sing for joy when my heart is heavy all my days. Yes, I will for all my days. Yes, I will for all my days. Oh yes, I will. When night has fallen, when fear is coming, still you're calling me. When faith is lost and my hope exhausted, you will be my strength. When my mind says you're not good enough, God, you're enough for me. Yeah, I've decided I'm not giving up, 'cause you won't give up on me. You won't give up on me. Your love is holding on and it won't let go. I feel it breaking out like an echo. Your love is holding on and it won't let go. And I feel it breaking out like an echo, echo in my soul. Hey! In every season, you keep repeating promises to me. No, now there's no stopping what you have started until it is complete. And when my mind says I'm not good enough, God, you're enough for me. I've decided I'm not giving up, 'cause you won't give up on me. 'Cause you won't give up on me. Your love is holding on and it won't let go. And I feel it breaking out like an echo. Your love is holding on and it won't let go. No, I feel it breaking out like an echo, echo in my soul. Love is holding on and it won't let go. And I feel it breaking out like an echo. Come on! Your love is holding on and it won't let go. And I feel it breaking out, breaking out. Hey, come on! Your love is holding on and it won't let go. And I feel it breaking out like an echo. Your love is holding on and it won't let go. No, I feel it breaking out like an echo in my soul. Oh, so